closing that one guy did in that movie. But you know, you go along and you have this opportunity to see people along the route and to see what is going on. And I want to tell you what I saw, because I've been in many ways to the beginning and to the end of what these black snakes look like, you know. And that's what we call this in our territory. We call this the black snake. And there are prophecies in our territory and prophecies in the Lakota country and in Anishinaabe country about the coming of the black snake. And what I'll tell you is that in our prophecies and, you know, in our ceremonies, I went to a lot of ceremonies on this, and I ask, like, what are we supposed to do? You know, I asked some spirits on some of those things, and you know what the spirit said to me? The spirit said, there's a reason it's in the ground. There's a reason these things are in the ground. And we have to remember that, because we live in a society which feels entitled to take things that should be in the ground and take them out. And we need to challenge that paradigm, because that paradigm is not sustainable. You cannot keep taking things out of the ground and expect that's going to work out for your water, or for your land, or for the things that we don't understand about how Mother Earth lives. There's a reason that copper is in the ground. There's a reason that oil is in the ground. There's a reason that carbon is supposed to stay in the soil and not go in the air. Right? Those are the things we know. And we have to really challenge this paradigm that says you keep taking things out and it's going to work out. Right? Because that's not true. You cannot keep taking things out. But to keep that in mind, because a lot of us, I think we end up in this era now where I see a lot of people going, wait, I just want to stop this one thing or stop this one thing. You know? Or like, wait, you know, I mean, my impersonation of Minnesota politicians is like this. It looks like it's coming our way. Let us do this. That's really not a strategy. You know, it's time to grow up. You know? So, we've entered this era of extreme extraction. And I think you guys probably been talking about that. I did not spend all day talking about it. But what I'm saying is we've entered this era where we have taken so much from Mother Earth that anything we take now is not given to us willingly. You know, extreme extraction is when you take off the top of 500 mountaintops in Appalachia, you know, and you blow off the top and you call it mountaintop removal. Extreme extraction is when you drill 20,000 feet under the ocean to take out some oil that should be staying down there, and then you have a problem like Deepwater Horizon, and you go, oh, sorry, man, messed that one up, right? Extreme extraction is the tar sands, and extreme extraction is fracking. Fracking is rape of Mother Earth. That is what fracking is. There is no other way to describe what is occurring with fracking. When you take the frack sand that I just saw, we just drove by there, we were over in Winona, my hometown there in Minnesota, you know, down in that whole area in southern Wisconsin, what you call Wisconsin and Ho-Chunk territory is what I would call it. In that territory, they're taking that sand, and you all know that. They're taking that sand, and they're putting it on trains, and they're loading it, and then they're taking it out there, and then they are taking these engines, and they're putting together, and they are taking those chemicals. They're taking 600 chemicals they do not have to disclose, and they're taking that sand, and they're taking it down, they're exploding the bedrock of Mother Earth. That is what fracking is. That is how extreme it is. It is extreme rape of Mother Earth. That is what is occurring in fracking. And what happens is that because it happens in places like North Dakota where people do not go. And they're like, well, I'm hoping that's going to work out. You know, this is me even in Minnesota until a few years ago. I was like, man, that looks kind of bad. I'm hoping that's going to work out in North Dakota. I'm hoping that's going to work out. You know, there's two things I'd say about that. One thing is it's, you know, it's a lot like the analogy I think of is a lot like when you know that there's a child being sexually abused in a household that is near yours or in your extended family, and you're looking at that child and saying, that's a bad thing, I think that's happening over there, and I hope that works out. Yeah. That's what this is like. That's what this is like. And it's not going to work out. It is not going to work out. That child's going to be messed up, and that's going to be messed up here. And so I was looking at that, and then one day about 2 years ago, as you saw in that video, you know, I would have tried to act that all out for you, but that's a lot of work. One day they announced that they're going to bring that oil across my reservation. So all of a sudden their problem became my problem. You know, and I thought it was going to work out. And that's why you cannot go like this, you know. But a long time ago, that place was a really beautiful place. Mandan Territory, the epicenter of northern agriculture. The epicenter is where it is, you know. That territory, and in the north of there, we grew enough corn to feed ourselves, and in that corn we grew a lot of it could grow 100 miles north of Winnipeg. That's the kind of agricultural and intellectual wealth that is contained in the area that they are destroying. That is what it was before it became this wasteland that they are trying to get. In this era of extreme extraction now, you know, I've been out there in the Bakken, and some of you have been out there in that territory, and the Fort Berthold Reservation heavily hit by many bad things, heavily hit by smallpox and heavily hit by dam projects that flooded those people. Those people are in so much post-traumatic stress that they can barely manage, that there are now 1,600 wells on their reservation, that there are frac sand mines, frac socks all over their reservation, including in their municipal wastes, that their people are very sick. And the fact is that there are spills that are occurring out there without regulation. North Dakota does not look good, and that's the beginning of where this is coming from the fracked oil. And what I do not want to be is I do not want to be someone that sits in Minnesota or sits over here and says, it is inevitable that oil comes this way, let us figure out how to accommodate it. Because we should not accommodate the rape that is occurring. We should not accommodate that oil as extreme behavior, and it is not going to work out. You cannot predicate your strategy on what goes down will not come up. That is when you inject trillions of gallons of highly radioactive and contaminated water into the ground in those injection wells, and you pretend that that's going to stay down there and not come back up. 43% of those wells in Colorado are leaking. That's what's happening. So, the way that industry and the way that the government has compartmentalized things, there is like studies done here and studies done here and studies done here, no cumulative studies, right? No mine or frac well to river impact assessment. And that's why we cannot get caught in that, one little compartment, know where it comes from. So at the front end, there are people that are struggling to keep their water. They're struggling against the snake there, and they're struggling against those wells. The community up there, Fort Berthold, is they call it Fort Berthold. I hate all those places named Fort something that are Indian communities. But that is what it is. Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara territory, they're trying to keep their water and keep their land, and they're in a very hard struggle. And one of the things about Native people, am I talking too fast for y'all? Y'all okay? Good. Okay. One of the things about Native people is that we're geographically and politically often very isolated. Yeah. And that's how a lot of bad stuff happens. And I do believe and know that you are caring people, and you would not like to see that happen to your neighbors, right? Right. And the fact is that what is happening to your neighbors is now coming your way, right? So that is why it's really, really important that we work together and we break the isolation of these communities and we support resistance at these front lines and in these grassroots at the front end of this. I think that Andy talked pretty well about the whole issues of, what is going on in the Athabasca River Basin, because I've also been up there. I've seen that, and I've seen that, I've seen what is coming from there, towards us. But what I want to say is that, as it comes to us, I've been to a lot of these hearings, and I think that Kathy and Andy and I, did we do most of the hearings together? I think Kathy and Andy and I partied for 2 weeks on the road. That's right. Let's go. We were on the Enbridge hearings. These guys are super troopers, It's pretty cool when you come from Minneapolis and it's like 5 below and wind chill of -20, and you're cruising northern Minnesota to hang out with us, So thank you for doing that. But I guess what I'm saying is that these companies and what I would call it is kind of a perfect storm in which these companies exist. They live in a perfect storm of a government that is owned by oil and mining companies. Our democracy has been heavily compromised because we live in a society which is heavily addicted and incredibly inefficient. And so in our addiction to fossil fuels, being the highest consumers per capita in the world except for anybody besides, the only people who beat us are Canadians. I was trying to figure out who could beat an American in consumption. You know what I mean? A Canadian could beat an American in consumption. There's not as many of them. Just colder up there, but same really bad, inefficient patterns. And then, of course, that guy, Harper. Oh. Right, exactly. Let's just be honest about these guys. So, this is so inefficient, and it's so high, the level of consumption, that we've become these people that are so caught in this system. And in this system, what happens is that you become addicted. And we've all become addicts, fossil fuel addicts. We're all fossil fuel addicts, And I myself, just like the rest of you, I lived my entire life in the fossil fuel era. That's all I know. I'm a little bit more disconnected perhaps than some of you, but we are become people that are super addicted, right? Our society is addicted, our houses are addicted, Our way of life is addicted. Our food systems are addicted. And the problem with being addicts is that you do a lot of bad stuff and hang out with dealers. That's how you get your democracy compromised. That's how you get your thought process compromised, as you become addicts. And I think that part of what we have to do is to recognize where we're at and work very hard on that transition. But in saying that, so you have the government that is compromised. Then you have an economy which has been, how would we say, first of all, you got an economy that's based on overconsumption and the idea of an endless supply. It's a linear economy that's based on taking stuff and making garbage. It's our society, 70% of it is consumption. That's what we do. We get a lot of stuff, we add some stuff to it, and we make a lot of garbage. We do a lot of that. And we don't know what to do with it, And that garbage is in the form of our production of material systems, and it is also social garbage. They do a lot of that in Wisconsin as well as everywhere else, because the United States, of course, leads the world in prisons. That's the social production of garbage. We've criminalized people, and now, of the 9 million prisoners in the world, 2.2 million are in the United States. So you have this. You have this situation, and you have an economy that cannot be sustained that is like that. And in the way that that economy acts, you find that we are in a situation where, in this day and age, people are not employed in quality of life way. We are barely hanging on to our jobs, trying to participate in a cash economy which is super dysfunctional and addicted to fossil fuels. And so we have all become really, really cash dependent. And in that process, we've become these people who become, my friend John Trudell, he always says there's a difference between a slave in chains and a wage slave. And the first one knows exactly where they stand. We have become people that don't even know to what level of slavery we are involved, And I'm saying let us look at where we are and see what our situation is and see how to free ourselves at some level from this slavery that we've got ourselves into. So what slavery looks like in this terms is that the industry comes out and says to us there are jobs in these pipelines, right? There are jobs in these pipelines, and we'll bring you jobs and we will save you with these jobs, right? And you and I know that those are neither long-term jobs or quality of life jobs or jobs that affirm people. Those are jobs that are about killing things, And you do not feel like a good person if you are in the middle of the Bakken destroying Mother Earth, in the middle of man camps, or up in those man camps in the Alberta tar sands. You feel like a second-class citizen and you lose your humanity in that process. That is what you do. You lose your humanity in that process. And when you lose your humanity, it's not a good way to live, and you do worse things, And we don't want people to lose their humanity. In North Dakota alone, in the past couple of years, they've had 3,500 burn victims that have come out of the Bakken. Those really fabulous oil fields, that stuff is super explosive, right? And so when those guys burn, they burn, and it's graphic. There's just a story in the Star Tribune here a couple of weeks ago. And so I don't want to aggrandize and pretend that those jobs are jobs that people should have. I think we really need to talk about what it is to be in those jobs and how dehumanizing it is and how unsafe it is. And particularly the laborers that are out there, because people are sent out there that have no ability to protect themselves, do not have the safety gear, and they're disposable humans, So let us challenge that. Challenge their paradigm. Challenge their math. Their math is bad. For those who know a little about me, I'm not going to go long into it, but I'm an economist by training. And if you look at the economics of all of this, there's a lot of money involved in it, and there's a lot of risk. That's what there is. And for those of us in Minnesota and Wisconsin, this area, that is all risk and liability that we are facing. And their math is bad. And the number of jobs that they are promoting, and it does not value. And I cannot put a price tag. Let me be honest, I cannot put a price tag on the value of clean water. And I'm not going to. I can't put a price tag on the fact that, you can still drink the water in northern Minnesota. What's that price tag? You know what I'm saying? I'm not doing it. But what I'm saying is that what they are proposing, their math is bad. The economics of it is bad. So let us say that we look at where we are looking at now. And I know that we talked a lot about, I wasn't here, I was just here for a little bit of the discussion on the Alberta Clipper. I don't want to get in a situation of comparing which pipeline is worse. It's like comparing oppressions. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all messed up. You could burn quick, you could cook quick, or you could cook slow. Right? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? But we have to be somewhat strategic in understanding how the industry works, right? So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that, you know, the ranchers in Nebraska, everybody knows some of these things, and I think we all qualitatively know some of these things. Whether it is the Bakken, or whether it is the Alberta, Athabascan River Basin. That is landlocked stuff. That is landlocked, and they need pipelines to get it out. You know, they're getting some of it out by trains, but there's nowhere near the level of exploitation they would wish to get as if they could get into these pipelines and start stuffing it down there, you know? And so, what I know is that I didn't know much about pipelines until about 2 years ago. As I was thinking about it on my way over, I was like, I didn't expect to be snake wrestling at 55. You know? But that's what we're looking at. We're looking at how's your skills at snake wrestling. You better bone up on them because this is going to be a tough one, right? You know, and so there are a whole number of pipelines. The Enbridge Company, TransCanada, those guys will tell you that things are going swimmingly well for them, but they are not. All across the board, there is resistance to every one of the bad ideas. That is the truth. There is resistance with there's strong resistance in Nebraska, strong resistance with the Lakota people to the KXL, and strong resistance across the country to that really bad pipeline, right? There is strong resistance in British Columbia, or what is known as British Columbia. I think that's a stupid name for anything, British Columbia. Excuse me. You know, I don't really know how you guys want to work that stuff out, but, you know, British whatever, you know, Prince of Wales, New whatever, just, you know, but we'll work on that one later. But I really want to bring that up, and I find it offensive that you call this stuff. That
it started with Christopher Columbus.
Right, it's just like endless, you know. Endless. We got some, you know, let us call things by their original names and honor the places where we live. Not continue with everything to be colonial, but I know that the maps are kind of misrepresented, so we'll stick to that for now. Gateway Pipeline is not doing so well either. Enbridge's Gateway Pipeline is not doing so well. Line 3, Line 9, you know, Energy East, these things, there's a lot of ideas that they have, but they are not getting a full bore, you know, push on everything. In every place, people are resisting them. So never feel that we are in isolation. And remember that here in Wisconsin, or we are from this whole region, we are, you know, we are people that are the, you know, on the front of the struggle that is in our territory. You know, where I live, I didn't know much about these pipelines, as I was saying. You know, you saw that movie on us in our territory, and I didn't know about the Sandpiper until August. We was already starting to ride. You know, this dream about riding. And, you know, and I kept dreaming about this ride, and we wanted to ride against the current of the oil. So I go to talk to the Lakotas about it, and I say, you know, I dream about riding against the current of the oil, and I said, I think it's a KXL, that pipeline they're proposing, and they said, you know, that's a good idea, Winona. It's a good idea, we'll think about that, and maybe we'll do that. I said, we're taking to ceremonies, and then I went home to my own community, and I sat there and I kind of waited. A lot of you guys are probably like this. I was waiting for the Lakotas to get ready to ride. I was like, I'll help you, I'll ride with you. Do your public relations, like do some articles. I was all excited. And then they took a long time. I was like, okay, anytime now, you guys let me know. I gotta get that funding proposal wrote on that one, you know, or whatever. Gotta get my plan. And in the meantime, I went out and bought a horse trailer, and my kids said, you're crazy. And then I just kept going from there. But then one day I woke up and I think they call it the burden of dreams. So I said, you cannot tell someone else to do something if you're not doing it yourself. And that's when I seen that Alberta Clipper, when we wrote that Alberta Clipper. I talked to people in my community, and I said, I'd like to, I think we should do that. And I found every horse riding Ojibwe I could find. On a horse. A couple of Irish people, it was all pretty cool. we like to have Irish people in all things, I think.